Hello, my name is David Brett. I'm the editor of the New Westminster Times, and joining me today is Dr. Francis Widdowson, and we have breaking news for you. This may come as a great shock. Some of this has been trickling out on social media over the last couple of days, but the about a sort of a hoax video documentary that has tricked Dr. Widdowson into being on camera. But here's the shocking part. It's all coming to you by way of your tax dollars through the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Yeah, that's right. The CBC is involved. Dr. Widdowson, you've just learned this today. What the heck is going on here?
I'm shocked. I thought that the CBC might be involved, but I thought they would have had more sense, like to set up a bunch of layers so it would be hard to have a direct kind of line between their action and what happened last Monday, May 4th. But Lindsay Shepherd, just who was also set up as well as Jerry, who wrote the book Sleepwalking. Uh, they were both set up the same day, and Lindsay just asked them straight up, "Were you behind this?" And the PR, the director of PR, sent her back an email saying yes, they were in preliminary production with alongside APTN, so Aboriginal People's Television Network. So both the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and the Aboriginal People's Television Network are both the ones behind what happened last Monday.
Okay, so for those who have not yet heard what happened, perhaps you could describe this kind of bizarre, kind of Twilight Zone style setup, like how it seems like a surreal thing that happened to you with a studio and a fake documentary. It was a setup.
Hmm.
What
Yeah, so
happened?
I was contacted in March by a person by the name of Pam Gibson, who that's not this person's name. We know the actual name of this person. Anyway, saying that they really wanted me to be a part of this docu series. They raised a whole bunch of issues like free speech at universities and having history told in a more objective way and so on. And I thought, yeah, that would be. I looked them up and they'd done some documentaries. I didn't look into it very much because I wasn't expecting anything nefarious. And they flew me to Vancouver. They put me up in a hotel. They had a driver drive me to the studio. And I was interviewed in a kind of a slightly odd interview with a woman who was all sort of dolled up with makeup and she looked, she just looked a little bit unserious. Her questions were not, very substantial. And they also had a John A. Macdonald actor, a person playing John A. Macdonald, but they were saying that they wanted to have both kind of the academic side and also the difficulties of playing John A. Macdonald in a theatrical thing. So I thought that was a bit strange as well. And then about half an hour into it, two Aboriginal men appeared. They dumped a bag of shoes onto the uh, onto the coffee table in front of me, and I first of all thought they were just sabotaging the interview, but then the way the interviewer, whose name is Dakota Abear, she's from Saskatchewan, a Dene a person, she was looking at me with complete hatred in her eyes, and I knew she was part of it too. And then I was trying to figure out how I was going to record this, and I said, I have some medication in my bag. Can you please bring this bag to me and my bag to me? And they brought me my bag. And when they brought me my bag, I pulled out my smartphone and started live streaming at that time and started interrogating this person who said his name was Mike Smith, but his name is Igor Vamos. And he is part of what a kind of a pranking kind of organization called the Yes Men. Yep.
So, right. So the shoe literally dropped, as they say, and the jig was up. You cottoned onto it, and you figured out that this was a prank of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this fellow, Igor Vamos, you caught
Yep.
him on film talking to you, and giving you the fake name.
Yep.
And so that you've put this video out there on Facebook and social media so people can
Hmm.
go and watch that and
Yes.
see what he says. And he says some weird things like who he's working for, but maybe you could describe the professionalism and sophistication of this prank. How many people were involved in, I mean, think about the budget.
Yes. It's enormous. We have a picture that I should just mention that my posting that video on social media resulted in a number of people contacting me. One of the people was Lindsay Shepherd. The other was and Jerry, of course, and then the other was a retired RCMP officer who said he had been subjected to an even worse scenario on uh, March 25th and 26th, where he and a number of retired RCMP officers were humiliated on a stage in front of what was claimed to be a live studio audience. So that was very strange. But when Lindsay contacted me, Lindsay Shepherd, um, that's when we started to figure out a whole bunch of different matters with respect to this pranking. And Lindsay did a bunch of research, so we were able to determine different kinds of all the moving parts of this story. But one of them is they created a fake media, this documentary company. It was named Forge Media. They had all sorts of email addresses associated with this fake company. Um, it was very elaborate, all the what they've done. So, and the Yes Men, evidently, this is this group that Vamos is associated with. They've been doing this for decades, and they have quite a sophisticated kind of approach to fool people with respect to creating all sorts of infrastructure to make you think that this is what's happening when it's not.
Right. And I've done some digging on the Yes Men
Mm-hmm.
and this fellow Igor Vamos, and he is kind of like the Leonardo da Vinci of this genre of punking. He has a long reputation going back to the 90s, and he's a professor at a place called Rensselaer Polytechnic in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And he's done all kinds of things like this Barbie doll hoax, where the voice boxes were altered to sound like men, like GI Joes. They kind of become iconic. So in some ways, isn't it kind of shocking that they would bring in this kind of the top tier talent, let's face it, in the world of hoaxing and punking to come after you?
Yeah, I'm
What
slightly
gives?
flattered. I guess I'm slightly flattered in that I didn't know that I was such a going concern. The people they've got are not powerful people. The people they're doing this to, and the meanness, that was one thing the RCMP officer was, or the retired RCMP. You're struck with the kind of meanness of it all. How they really it doesn't have a feel of being all fun and everything. It's got a quite a nasty kind of sensibility to it, especially that what happened to this retired RCMP officer. So I guess we're getting closer to the Kamloops 215 deception than we thought we were. They're fighting back hard, and this is one of the mechanisms that they're going to use to try to do it. But I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked that the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation would be doing this to ordinary citizens who are just trying to tell the truth about various historical circumstances.
Okay,
It really
so
is amazing.
you got an email from the
Yep.
CBC
Yep.
admitting. So what did they
Yep.
say in their email to you about their involvement? And uh, is it true that they are the key organizers and producers of this? Or
Well, it was Lindsay Shepherd. So Lindsay was trying to, because we knew that the RCMP officer, the retired RCMP officer, had this happen to him on March 25th and 26th. And the company that was set up for him, the fake company, if it is a fake company, who knows, was a different name than Forge Media. So we thought it might be possible it was a different thing going on. It was unlikely because of this. And also the RCMP retired officer was saying the same people, he noticed the same people involved in both cases. So, but we wanted confirmation of this. So Lindsay was trying to get this kind of information. And when she was trying to do this, she just asked the CBC straight up, were you behind this? This is what was going on. And they said, a woman who's the head of the PR department at CBC said, APTN and CBC are in preliminary development, like they haven't put it out yet for public watching, but they're in the preliminary stages of developing this program. That's what they told Lindsay. It's an email. It's posted on social media, so there's no question that they are the main APTN, Aboriginal People's Television Network, and the CBC both receive substantial amounts of money from the Canadian public, and that's what that's being used for, to do this to people who are not powerful, just trying to tell the truth about things like the Kamloops 250.
right, and I think this is a shocking part. Now, the yes men and Vamos and his tribe and his collective of pranksters, their modus operandi typically is to go after big corporations,
Mm-hmm.
big oil or George Bush or the U.S. Department of the Environment. They famously put up a fake George Bush website during the what was it called? Occupy Wall Street uh, era and the World Trade Center riots in Seattle, and they've done all this. So it seems rather counterintuitive
Mm.
for a fairly well-known, influential prankster not to be going after powerful institutions, controlling things in society and the status quo. Whereas, what do you think they think? Do they think that you are funded and fueled by US or some kind of corporate interest that so much so that they have to take you down from your high, powerful position?
They do. And I've seen this kind of mock-ups before. And I just did an interview with a woman by the name of Emily Enns, who's a graduate journalism student, talking about, the rising denialism, the rising force of denialism. And she's talking in this piece as if there's this kind of highly organized, well-funded network of people from I don't know exactly. I'm just the Frontier Center, right? That's mentioned, but of course, like that's not really like tons of money. Like I raise. I was telling her I have a fundraising site where I raise money to pay for my expenses to make trips to universities and things. This is the level that I'm at. I occasionally get if I write something for the Frontier Center, I might get $600 or $700 for a piece I write, but that doesn't happen very often. So there's not this kind of centralized kind of alt-right funding source that is, creating, and they actually, I believe, laugh activism is what this was called, and they kind of portray it as opposing fascism. So they use the word fascism. So these fascist alt-right forces that had this massive funding from all these sources, which is just totally untrue. There's not very much funding at all, and it certainly doesn't come from one centralized source, whatever it does. And and I'm a socialist who follows the ideas of George Orwell. Orwell. I have nothing to do with any kind of organized, quote unquote, alt right kind of entity. So the whole thing seems to be a complete fabrication of what is happening. It's really quite, it's very shocking. I find it shocking.
Would you mind if I just shared something here? It's a page from the CBC, a recent story, and I
Mm.
just wanted to discuss that. Are you able to see that? It is
Uh,
you
I'm
might be
not
able to
seeing
see
anything.
it there. It's a story from April
Oh, I see
23rd.
now.
It says Americans are paying more attention to Canada. Should we be worried?
Mm.
Now, let's not gloss over the fact that the yes men and um, Igor Vamos, where are they from? They're from the United States.
Yep. Yeah.
So the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, that's worried about American influence, is literally funding American pranksters and you might say leftist activists to come into Canada to influence public opinion here through this quote unquote comedy stuff they're trying to do.
Mm.
So this particular story, it's interesting. They show the sinister American in Ottawa parading by, but there's also the matter of Leah Gazan and the way she was sent up recently over her uh, enormously long um, alphabet description. You know the video clip I'm talking about?
Yep. I know the alphabet description.
MMIWG2SLGBTQQIA plus.
Yep.
So when she said that, it went viral.
Yep.
Possibly tens of millions of people around the world. There was constant sending up of it.
Yep.
So the CBC in multiple stories is
Yep.
now sort of focusing on quote unquote foreign interference
Mm.
in Canadian democracy.
Yep.
So there is I'll just stop sharing this now. But would you say that there's a element of that in what's happened to you just now?
Well, to the extent, I guess, that the Yes Men is an American, like they are American. The extent to which their involvement is a signal of American interests. I know the Aboriginal kind of area is got all sorts of groups that are from the United States and are have alliances with Aboriginal groups in Canada. So it's possible that's the case. So I think it's I haven't really investigated it very much, but the CBC, their involvement is really still kind of what's
Yes.
surprising me, really
Now,
surprising me.
Dr. Widdowson, you're a very fair and balanced person.
Mm.
You don't
Yeah.
you don't like to point the fingers or to exaggerate
Yeah.
things.
Mm-hmm.
But myself, as a journalist with my hat on, what I see here is yes, the CBC is writing the checks,
Yes.
APTN is writing the checks for this,
Yep.
but it's as if they're bringing in Steven Spielberg to direct the show. They're bringing in US talent to
Mm.
make sure it comes off with the gloss of the Yes Men and their cadre of producers are well known to be the creme de la creme
Mm.
of this genre. High
Yeah.
production values, very
Mm.
slick, very
Yeah.
professional.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you're
Yeah.
talking about bringing in a studio audience to prank an RCMP guy?
Mm. Yeah. I'm amazed, and it seems, uh, in terms of the American influence, yeah, they're how much money are they paying for these Americans to come in and do this? And I don't know how much of the crew. Who's the crew? Where's the crew from? Is this the CBC? That's the crew members working for the CBC. It's an Aboriginal organization in Saskatoon, which is called NLT1 Productions. That's the Aboriginal organization, the media company from Saskatoon. But, obviously they're not very sophisticated, I would think. So the Yes Man is now going to put the kind of the polish on it that it wouldn't have otherwise. So yeah, but I think looking at the funding is the key here. Uh, how much
Okay.
money? First of all, how much does this cost? It seems like they're 25 in a picture that they did. They took a picture of themselves after throwing the shoes on the table. They're all sitting there. There's 25 people in that picture. So it's really quite, there's a lot of people that are involved. So,
Okay,
um,
let's delve into a slightly different um, aspect of this. And that is the larger context in Canada around quote unquote misinformation.
mhm,
You have literally have CSIS, Canada's CIA, uh, looking in and trying to, you know, clamp down on misinformation. And there's this big push to uh, filter out misinformation and educate the public how to spot misinformation. And
mm,
then also the aspect of hate speech
mm,
and try to single out and target people and sort of clean misinformation out from the Canadian social media landscape. Well, this guy's literally lying to you about his name.
yeah,
He
yeah,
normally goes by Mike Bonanno. That's his
mm,
alias.
mhm.
His name is Igor Vamos, but he told you his name was
Mike Smith. Mike
Mike
Smith was the
Smith.
name he gave.
So,
And everyone else had false names too. Like we've uncovered a whole bunch of these people who have other names that they're using in these emails. So
yeah, well, it's
Lindsay's
all
been
about
working hard at doing
people talk about deep fakes. Got to worry about the deep fakes.
that. Yeah.
Well, how
And
deep
they,
a fake is this where they set up, they're well known for setting up fake websites and fake things to trick high profile people
mm,
into saying things or just so when you when the term misinformation is being talked about in the media context in this country, is anyone defining what that is?
well,
It's just thrown out there.
yeah, and misinformation is well, all information might have part of it that is not correct. Like this is always the battle that you're dealing with, trying to make your views and your sources and so on as accurate as you possibly can. But people make mistakes. But the idea of misinformation has more of a, and I guess that's when it is disinformation is often the words used, which
Mhm.
is that it's intentional. Like you're intending to spread false information about things. And the funny thing is that the Kamloops case, which is the one that I'm heavily involved in trying to expose, that is disinformation. Like there has been disinformation going on with respect to this case for 4 years. They're intentionally trying to deceive people so that they can have $12.1 million that they're able to obtain. They have all sorts of initiatives such as UNDRIP and things like that they've been pressing on the basis of this. So they're actually accusing people of doing what they themselves are doing. So the whole thing is really quite. I'm flabbergasted about what's going on.
Yeah, and it's shocking that Canadian taxpayers are on the hook to the tune of who knows how much money, hundreds of thousands maybe.
Mm,
If they're doing multiple episodes and flying
yeah.
people in and
Mm,
renting studios and bringing in high-priced talent from the United States to run the show. So you're right about disinformation. So it's the irony here is thick.
mm,
Your claim to fame is you are fighting misinformation and disinformation. You're putting your literal life on the line, almost being torn apart by wild animals on university campuses, uh, thrown into back of squad cars and carted off to jail to freeze in your fight against misinformation. And now they're tricking you with fake information. How
It is.
hypocritical is that?
Yeah, they're trying to win here. They're not pursuing the truth. They want this deception to continue. I assume that they sense that a reckoning is coming and they want to stop that reckoning from actually arriving. So to do something about it, they're trying to make a fool out of me, make me look like I'm a person who I don't even know what that means to have all these shoes dropped on this table in front of me. I was still kind of I'm still trying to figure out what kind of program, what is that going to look like with these, like what point are they trying to make, which I was asking them at the time. It's just, why are you doing that? Like, what are you trying to make a comparison with the Holocaust and the shoes of children who died? Is this what this is? Do you think that that's a comparison that should be made? I was trying to talk to these two Aboriginal men, and they just glared at me as I was talking. So they're showing them glaring at me. I'm talking to them about the shoes. I don't understand the kind of content that we're going to have created by this.
Yeah, it seems like the opposite of humor. It's a very macabre sight to see shoes that are allegedly of murdered children. And the Holocaust imagery and invoking the Holocaust is almost constant. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the League
Yep.
has an bill to criminalized quote unquote Holocaust or residential school denialism as the same as Holocaust denialism.
Mm-hmm.
It somewhat trivializes the Holocaust, don't you think?
Yeah, and like the whole thing about the saying that Canada was a genocidal country because of the residential schools. You know, their genocides are the worst kind of action that a state can be engaged in. And the residential schools, there's problems with them. Everyone is trying to figure out the scale and the time frames and the different schools involved. But before 2019, which was the murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls inquiry, no one was thinking that this was actual genocide, or there was a very fringe kind of perspective. And then with the 215, like murdered children buried clandestinely, that was sort of what we were being led to believe. Everyone started to take this claim a bit more seriously. And so this is kind of stuck in the popular consciousness. And we need to go back. We need to pull back and say our whole genocide, the whole genocide idea of genocide was constructed through this 215 claim. And now that we know that the 215 claim is without any evidence, why don't we then have the pulling back on all the kind of the genocide accusations? But we haven't been able to do that yet because of all the hostility and these things going on. So I really think we need to
I'm just sharing a screen
have a
here.
reckoning. We need to discuss this. Everyone needs to be figuring this out and not have all the intimidation and the accusations happen.
So here's your good friend Mike Smith, just
Yep.
sharing the screen from
Yep.
where he teaches.
Yep.
Apparently, he's been on a member of the faculty for over 25 years here,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a professor there. It's like a college of 7 or 8 thousand people in New York.
Yep.
Uh, he calls himself a culture jammer,
Mm-hmm.
and he's talking about climate change and the yes men, and he has his kind of sort of pedigree here. And this guy is no slouch when it comes to doing what he does.
Yep.
And that's
Yeah.
another question, whether it's a legitimate form of protest or not. But as a champion of free speech uh, and someone who believes in that myself, well, more power to him if he can. He's created a career and a reputation around doing this. But it seems to me the way it's being applied to you and to in the Canadian context doesn't fit with what he's done in the past.
No.
It seems very um, nefarious and missing the mark. Where's the humor? I mean, if you get, I was reminded of, Michael Moore, the documentarian. Uh, what was his film? Looking for Roger.
Yeah. Roger and me. Yeah.
The head of, I think it was General Motors, for shutting down auto plants in Detroit and putting people out of work. He's very pro-union and a lot of gotcha
Hmm.
moments and trying to get
Yeah.
people on film saying things. Well, you know, that's part of the genre, but here it just seems to be a real head scratcher. So I think that's the key. The news here is that it's tax money, Canadian taxpayer money. We've said that over, but this just seems preposterous that Canadians will have to shell out money to pay for this.
And it's we I think Matt Walsh did this with D'Angelo. The last name is D'Angelo. I always forget her first name. She did the White Fragility book,
Right.
and here's someone who is paid tens of thousands of dollars just to have a workshop she gives. So when you see people who are part of the establishment who need to be taken down a peg, then one thinks, okay, well, this is part of this kind of getting people to make fun of people to reduce their power in society and so on. But as you we pointed out, like, are people really thinking that I'm a powerful person? And Lindsay Shepherd and Jerry and the RCMP, the retired RCMP officer, we're I'm been we Lindsay's been canceled. I've been canceled. Jerry had to publish his book. It's called Sleepwalking. No one would publish it. No publishing firm, so he had to self-publish it. The RCMP retired officer. He's not. No one knows who he is, and so on. Within various circles. So why are they seeing us as such a threat and such a sort of powerful people that need to be taken down? It just seems to me that they're trying to silence people. That's what it's about. Is they're coming after people who are trying to challenge the existing position on this, and that really
Yeah.
seems to me to be a completely. It's being used. This genre is being used in the opposite way that makes it funny. I don't know how many people are going to find it funny to find someone who's just a canceled professor who doesn't have any backing of any kind to be humiliating me. Is that going to be funny? That people think that's going to be funny?
Yeah, this idea that, well, we're uh, speaking truth to power on behalf of those who have no voice
Yeah.
and, you know, giving power to the people. Well, you are an example of someone who has been disempowered already.
Yeah.
And Jerry Amernick, who we did interview on for the New Westminster Times a while back, people can watch that. And Lindsay Shepherd, who kicked out of her job, just when she's going on maternity leave. It's just a cruel turn of events um, for a tweet. So yes, it is like an inverted and cruel thing where uh, if I could position it this way, that I've been reading this book about what's called preference falsification. And the idea that people in society will express views and opinions that they publicly that they don't hold privately for fear of social penalty. So if people start speaking out more, the level of penalty has to go up. So that what you see is the level of penalty is just being ratcheted higher and higher. Okay, we're going to put them in jail. We're going to come after them legally. We're going to cancel their jobs. And now we may have even trick them to go on a fake show. I mean, this seems to be like uh, the nuclear option to penalize someone.
Mm.
Maybe this, it sounds like this is going to backfire on them, in my opinion. How can they possibly win at
If
this
it doesn't
game?
backfire on them, we're in serious trouble. When I think about the CBC, which is a network that I used to watch quite religiously, I don't know how long ago that was. Certainly, I remember in 2013, I was listening to it a lot. I used to listen to all the morning shows and so on. It's quite an illustrious past. Programs like the Fifth Estate that used to do good exposés, and now it's just completely ideological and propagandistic. So the CBC is in serious trouble here. Hopefully, it'll be a wake up call where they have a revamping of what they're doing. But I find the coverage of Aboriginal issues to be one of the worst. I guess trans is the other one that they don't cover properly either. And maybe this will lead to a rethinking of the kind of ideological capture that they're dealing with.
Okay, well, what do you think's the next steps here? I guess you'll keep digging and finding out more information about what's behind this.
Mm.
Maybe FOI requests will have to be sent in. What is the budget for this? Who's in charge of it? What department is it under? Who authorized this? Does anyone in government know about this? Is there any oversight?
Mm-hmm.
How could
Yeah.
this happen?
Mm.
Is this part of entertainment? Is this
Mm.
really entertainment, or is it political interference in Canadian democracy in you know in that involves people from America? It's not just a homegrown, uh, good old Canadian talent. This is a very sophisticated kind of a takedown. So, any next steps do you think in this saga?
So the other thing I should have mentioned is that they also tried to go after Dallas Brody, the leader
Oh,
of 1BC. So they tried to trap her in this. She has people are much more well. First of all, Dallas Brody used to work for the Fifth Estate, so she's well aware of what should happen in these kinds of contexts, and was immediately suspicious about the things that were unfolding. Whereas someone like me, I don't really have a good sense of what needs to happen in a kind of a documentary series. So that's the other thing, is that Dallas Brody and Tara Armstrong are the two MLAs who are speaking truth to power about the reconciliation industry, or what Albert Howard and I used to call the Aboriginal industry. So they're trying to take her down as well. Not David Eby, not Mark Carney, not the people who are actually in power, but the dissident voices. So I'm working with a whole bunch of people right now, trying to shed as much light as we possibly can on this matter. There's some troubling legal questions that come out of this as well. What does it mean to take someone to a studio under false pretenses? Is that a criminal act? Like, I've heard that kidnapping is, if it's false pretenses, it's possible that's the case. So the CBC should be very worried, I think, legally about these kinds of tactics that it's been using too. I'm not a real big fan of the legal approach, because I think it costs a lot of money, takes a lot of time, and kind of takes things out of the public realm. So I'm hoping that when people see this, they will come out against the CBC and APTN, say it's unacceptable for these public funded institutions to be acting against their own people. And this will lead to a reform of these institutions that have been captured.
Yeah, that's a good point. If this were privately funded, if it were a bunch of activists or NGOs soliciting donations and handing out tax receipts, I mean, that's tax receipts, are government funded to some extent, but it's literally coming from the taxpayer's pocket to CBC to do this kind of subterfuge. And, you know, if it's quote unquote all in good fun, or it's like there seems to be no joke here. There's
Uh,
no punchline at all. It's just let's take some people we think are fascists and humiliate them, and we'll laugh at them.
mhm.
People,
And
not
the
people who
show's
are,
name,
yeah.
I should mention the show's name. The program is called Counting Coup, and the second word is COUP. If you look up that phrase in the on the internet, you'll find it's a Native American Plains Indian saying, which means humiliating and intimidating your enemy so that they won't be able to fight back against you. And I that's one thing I find a bit striking about this was the hatred that I was being looked at by uh, her name is Dakota A Bear. She's a comedian, and I think this is kind of this hatred is being fomented by organizations like the CBC, and that doesn't bode well for Aboriginal, non-Aboriginal relations, to be encouraging
Mhm.
Aboriginal people to see people who are just trying to figure out better ways and more cooperative ways to live with Aboriginal people, develop better relations, to kind of have this encouragement of this hatred is very destructive as well.
Okay, so well, to end on a more upbeat note, you are potentially on the cusp of being reinstated as a professor at MRU in Alberta.
Yes, that's correct.
So the timing of
And
this is rather strange. As we've said in another view, in a video, and Francis has reported, the Alberta Labor Relations Board has come down heavily on your side. It's come out, you were never, it was never any just cause to fire you. You should have been reinstated immediately, but weren't. And the Alberta Labor Board has written a very stern rebuke, really, of the decision.
yes,
So
it's
it's
all
like
coming together.
redemption, and you're being justified here and vindicated.
Yeah,
So isn't this just gonna, uh, it just seems like the worst possible timing for them to be coming after you when the institutional world is admitting, is going to be forced to admit that they've made a big mistake in your case. So I hope that goes well. Any news on that front?
so it's just gone back to the arbitrator, David Philip Jones, to rewrite his decision. It's good news regardless of whatever happens because the decision is so well argued, so concisely argued that it will form a precedent for other cases where similar things happen, and that academic freedom is for the first time in my case, which I've been fighting for 6 years, is now front and center. And my colleagues, my very astute colleagues who have been interacting with this about says there's no way the arbitrator is going to be able to justify the lack of reinstatement because he really has nothing to work with except for I was criticizing Mount Royal University and the union, which I'm entitled to do as a tenured professor. And what I'm entitled to do, and which is protected by academic freedom, cannot be used as a reason why I can't be reinstated. So I'm hoping Jones will admit that he made a mistake. That would be the best way out of this, and that I should be reinstated. That hopefully will happen this August. I should be back at Mount Royal University this August. And then we can just, we can figure out how can we restore Mount Royal to the academic institution, that wonderful institution that I joined in 2008. How can we recapture that kind of ethos that we had? I guess that's now 15 years ago, which would just be a fantastic win for the students, the faculty, the public, to have a great institution like Mount Royal University return to its former glory.
Okay, we'll leave it there on that upbeat note. Thank you, Francis, for talking to us today about the shocking breaking news about our wonderful national broadcaster trying to humiliate you. So we'll follow this story with interest, and we'll leave it there. And I thank you all for watching. If you enjoy our journalism at the New Westminster Times, uh, go to our website, newwesttimes.com, and feel free to subscribe to our newsletter or support us. There's a little button in the corner that says support our work. If you would feel so inclined, we would really appreciate it. Again, thanks again, Francis, for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.